if I come and join the sector or do a development program here or elsewhere, am I changing my track? It's mostly the pressure is probably coming from their peers and parents. So how do we answer them? How do they blend their knowledge gathered here?
Right. So no, that's a very, very interesting question. Let's say that engineers, is it a question, is it a valid question to say that, okay, if you are engineers, you will only have to be in the factories, or you will only have to be in the engineering offices of drawing, and or if you are a civil engineer, you have to be doing some bridge and or a monument or things like that. So let me take the engineering example, which is very, and I also come from a science and engineering background. For 16 years of my first part of the life, yeah, the young part of the life, I was doing electronics out of that matter, and not only doing electronic software, but I was doing electronic hardware. So let's say how things are important. Engineering is important for in development sector, right?
Yeah.
Let's say that you have to think of a home which is energy efficient. How you make a home energy efficient? You have to think of the different kind of bricks. You have to think of different kinds of ventilation. You have to think of sunlight. You have to think of how you use your less electricity. That's huge architectural engineering design. Secondly, if you have to think of water supply in a particular area, you have to think of how you can make a water supply work for every season, even in drought season, even in summer, even in deep winter. That's an engineering question, but also that is a social development question. Because the water supply has to be equitably available to all, irrespective of whether you are poor or you are Adivasi or you are a middle class person. If you look at, for example, agriculture and fisheries, they are part and parcel of India's development sector, because 65 to 69% of our population is still dependent on agriculture. The food you and I eat comes from that crop.
Absolutely.
So to make those lives, you need agricultural technologies, you need agricultural inputs, you need agricultural knowledge that has to be applied in a social context where people benefit and not only companies benefit. So there is it is a change of track in some way. You are not in the factory, you are not in a seed company, or you are not in an agricultural machinery company, but you are in the company of people.
Excellent. And the knowledge is also being used.
Your knowledge is very much coupled with the social development knowledge.
Correct, that's correct.
And then make that applying instead of just making an agricultural machine. You think of it as an agricultural machine which a woman can run. That's what social development and engineering couple.
Fantastic.